Hey, I hope you guys have all had a great week. As you can see, I have almost completely moved out of this room. So by this time next week, I will be back at my house in a little bit different of an environment. Um, but it's just been a crazy, awesome week. Finishing up with finals, and it's just busy and fun, and a little bit sad too. Having to leave all my good friends from down at school for the summer, but I will be back next fall. So I have a message for you guys today that I'm so excited to share with you guys. And so I hope you enjoy it. I hope it helps, and I will see you guys all next week. Bye. So I have a question for you guys. Can any of you guys speak a different language? Because if you can, which I can't, I wish I could, but if you can, then you would know that there's a different accent that you have by speaking that language. There's a different accent that you have to put on when speaking that language. So the accent that you have, we can even look at it, let's just look at it with English. In American English, right? The people who live in the Northeast talk differently than the people in the Southeast. Or the people in the Midwest speak differently from Southwest. It's different. The accent that we have is different. And often the things in our life, the environment, the people that we put around us influence our accent. And so to check out this accent a little bit further today, I want to flip to Matthew 26, verses 69 through 75. And we're going to be focusing on verse 73. And so this, just to give a little bit of context, this is after Jesus has been arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane and the disciples have fled. And so now we're seeing one of the disciples named Peter, and we're going to focus on him today. The text says, "Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came up to him and said, 'You also were with Jesus the Galilean.' But he denied it before them all, saying, 'I do not know what you mean.' And when he went out to the entrance, another servant girl saw him, and she said to the bystanders, 'This man was with Jesus of Nazareth.' Once again he denied it with an oath, 'I do not know the man.' After a little while the bystanders came up and said to Peter," this is what I want to focus on today, "Certainly you too are one of them, for your accent betrays you." Then he began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear, "I do not know the man." And immediately the rooster crowed. And Peter remembered the saying of Jesus, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly. So we're talking about the accent today. If we were talking or if I was in a church setting, in a church context, I would say the accent. I want to tell you guys that we're talking about the accent today. So I was going to preach from the perspective of the accent of action. And the reason I was going to do that is because Peter has been given an accent of action by Jesus. By being involved and hanging around Jesus, Peter has been given an accent to action. And now this is something where I would then go to explain examples from my life about me picking up the mannerisms of other people. I've noticed that through many different times in my life, I'll be like, wow, the way that I just said that sounded a whole lot like one of my good friends who I hang out with all the time. I wonder why that is. Well, it's because the people who you spend the most time around often influence you the most. And it could be through the things that you say. It could be the way that you say something. It could be the things that you do. It could be the way that your hands move while you're talking. I don't know. For me, it's been all those different things. So the accent that you have. But today, instead of talking about the accent of action, I want to talk to you from this perspective, language barrier. Because that is what Peter is facing here. The accent that he has, the language that he uses to pronounce certain things are giving away who he is and where he's from, because they're in Jerusalem right now, but he's from Galilee. And so the way that people in Galilee pronounce things are differently than the way that people pronounce them in Jerusalem. So when you're taken out of your context and put into a new context, often you stick out because you have a different language as to how you pronounce things. And now this is all speaking metaphorically, of course, but I go through in the full sermon. I don't have nearly enough time to go as in depth with this topic as I want to, but in the full sermon, or I shouldn't call it a sermon, in the full message that I'm trying to communicate to you guys, I talk about Group A and Group B, and how Group A has a different language for judging leadership than Group B does. And now Group A and Group B are both examples from my life, and how Group A viewed me in a different way than Group B did. And it's by no fault of Group A's that they viewed a different perspective of leadership than Group B. In fact, I appreciated the why behind what they were doing, not the what of how they did it. And then Group B, who viewed it in a different way, who were able to look past some of the things that a lot of people get stuck on and see the direction behind where I was going. They aren't focused on the snapshot of where I am currently. Although that does matter. They're more concerned about the direction, about where I'm going. Because the snapshot itself can be nothing. Because the snapshot can either be moving in a good direction or a bad direction, but you aren't able to tell which way it's moving based off of a snapshot, because a snapshot is a still frame. But with the direction, and now here's where we often get frustrated in our life, because we see the direction of where we're going. We see the steps that are being taken, the way that God has changed the way we treat finances, has changed the way that we view other people, have changed the relationship in our life, has changed us, has changed the way that we confront things in our life. We see the direction. We see the heart change. We see the different accent that we're starting to develop. We see the direction. But then we get so frustrated because people most of the time don't take the time to learn the context behind the direction that you're moving in. Often they just judge you based off of a snapshot. And like I said, so I go into much further detail describing Group A and Group B and how they viewed and treated me as leaders. And this is not to tear either one of those groups down or build either one of these groups up. This is just my perspective on how I viewed what they were doing in my life. And so with Group A, they judged me based off of a snapshot. They presented me a snapshot as if I was ignorant to the direction that I was moving in. Because often in our lives that we get so frustrated because we say, God, why didn't I get that job? God, I had just the same qualifications for that job as any other person. And now they're looking at me saying, oh, well, you didn't have just this one other thing. Maybe you're applying to colleges and you got so frustrated because you had the grades, but maybe you didn't have the involvement. And maybe you go to and are applying to a school that cares a whole lot about not only having good grades, maybe even your grades could suffer a little bit as long as you're involved in doing a whole lot of things. So your language behind why you did what you did throughout high school is different, than the language of what they're looking for, and you get mad because they're judging you based off of a snapshot. You're mad, because they're judging you based off of a resume and that they aren't taking the time to learn your context, that they aren't taking the time to sit you down and learn about who you are, where you're from, why you did what you did. And so many times in our life we get frustrated because people don't see us by the direction that we know that we're moving in. They view us by the snapshot that they choose to see. And so the language that we have, which the language here, if it's still unclear, I'm just talking about the way we do the things that we do in our life. Whether that's the way that we treat other people, the way that we act towards other people, the way that we communicate, and the way we value other people. That is the language behind ourself. So if our language doesn't line up, and we know that in order for us to be truly satisfied with God and to be truly satisfied with ourselves, we can't judge ourselves based off of a snapshot. If we learn that our language often is more important between you and God than between you and other people, because once you let other people get in the way, then you're allowing their snapshot of you, their judgment of you, to be more important than the way that God views you. And so today I just wanted to tell you guys that the accent behind what Christ is doing in your life, the direction that you're moving in, is more important than the snapshot of what people see from you. I hope this was helpful today. If you guys are interested in this topic more, I did do the full sermon on this, in which I go into a lot of these things in a lot more detail and a lot more depth. So if you're interested in learning more, make sure to check out the full message. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will be back at my house for pretty much the rest of the summer, starting next week. So I hope that you guys will all stick with me there. It might be a little bit different of an environment, maybe a little bit different acoustics and lighting. We'll figure it all out, but I'm ready for it. I'm excited for it. I hope you guys all have a great week. If you're in college, good luck with finals. And I'll see you guys all next week. Bye.